What's the most shocking karma you've seen hit someone who left their family for true love? Story 1. I work in payroll HR for a mid-sized construction company. 3 summers ago, our project manager, Rick, nuked his life overnight. His wife had just had their second kid. Rick announced in the Monday stand-up he'd found true love, a woman named Jules he met at a vendor conference. He moved into a high-rise the same week, posted thirst-trap photos of rooftop martinis, and told anyone who'd listen that love was a force of nature and child support was just a number. Within a month, expenses tied to Rick's job started getting weird. Duplicate invoices, rush payments for consulting. He brushed me off, said, "Innovation looks messy on spreadsheets." My boss asked me to pull every payment Rick had approved in the last 6 months. 42 irregularities. Same Shell LLC, slightly different names. Address matched Rick's new building. Then Jules showed up. She was poised, glossy, charming, sat across from me in a white blazer and asked for the W-9 for a vendor. Not normal. No one who is just a girlfriend knows to ask for a W-9. My stomach did a slow roll. 2 weeks later, a woman from the parent company arrived with a security badge and a small smile. She gathered senior staff in the conference room and introduced herself. Senior Internal Auditor, Julia, not Jules. Same woman. She'd been embedded for months due to whistleblower flags from a rival PM. Her relationship with Rick, well, it was a sting to see how far he'd push. They let him talk first. He swaggered, called the audit a petty corporate theater. Julia slid a folder across the table. Wire transfers, Venmo screenshots, emails from his personal account begging her to float me one more invoice, babe. He turned gray. Julia's true love texts were bait. Rick's were confessions. He was fired on the spot. Security walked him out past the framed Employee of the Quarter photo he'd insisted include his watch collection. A month later, I got a subpoena. The DA charged him with fraud. His love had been wearing a wire during at least 3 dinners he bragged about on Instagram. Last week, Rick called the office from county jail asking to talk payment plans for back child support. He used our general line. I answered. He begged me to tell his wife he'd learned his lesson. I told him I'd pass along a message. I did, by forwarding the signed garnishment order. The punchline? Julia sent a thank you email to HR after the case wrapped. Subject line, closed. She attached a photo of the view from the same rooftop bar, empty chair where Rick used to pose, and wrote, "Sometimes, love is a force of nature, just not the kind he imagined." Story 2. I was 13 when my dad announced he was leaving my mom for his soulmate, a yoga instructor he met at a corporate retreat. He told me it was higher vibrational truth and promised we'd still be best friends. 3 weeks later, he forgot my birthday. Mom got a second job and stopped wearing her wedding ring. I learned how to cook boxed mac and cheese without burning the pot. 2 years of sporadic visits, late Venmos, and Dad texting me inspirational memes instead of showing up. The soulmate called me kiddo and tried to talk me into reframing missing Christmas. Senior year, I got pneumonia. Mom slept in a hospital chair for 4 nights. Dad sent me a sun emoji and heal fast because he and his soulmate were on a silent retreat. On the day of my 18th birthday, we had a custody hearing to finalize child support arrears. Dad arrived in linen pants with a beaded bracelet and an attorney who smiled like a knife. They argued Dad had contributed in non-monetary ways. Mom's attorney slid forward a folder. Messages, canceled checks, the invoice from the hospital with no visitors circled. I had asked to speak. The judge raised an eyebrow and let me. I told the truth about the voicemail where Dad complained that my existence was a financial choke collar, about Mom selling her wedding dress to pay for my inhaler, about the retreat schedule posted on Instagram the day he missed my ER visit. The courtroom got very quiet. Dad's soulmate stared at the floor. Then the judge asked if I had any requests.
I said yes. I wanted to change my last name. Not to Mom's maiden name, she'd offered, to my stepdad's. The man who taught me to drive, to balance a checkbook, who came to every band concert even when I sounded like a feral oboe. The judge granted it on the spot. I watched the letters of my father's name shrink into the court transcript like a closing door. Afterward, in the hallway, Dad tried to hug me. He said the soulmate was pregnant and I needed to hold space. I told him I wished the baby nothing but health and that I hoped he learned how to show up before it was too late. 2 months later, his soulmate left him for a meditation teacher. Dad called me crying, said karma was brutal. I said, it's not karma, it's a calendar. You missed enough days and time took your place. Then I walked out with my new ID card, my stepdad's last name printed in clean black letters, and felt the first easy breath I'd taken in years.
Story 3. I'm the true love, or I thought I was. Before the pitchforks come out, I didn't know he was still living with his wife when we met. He said they were separated, just co-parenting, papers in progress. He cried in my kitchen about feeling invisible. I believed him. I'm not proud of that. He left his family in a blaze. A Facebook announcement about choosing joy, a boho apartment he decorated with plants he never watered, weekend getaways. Then I got pregnant. He panicked and proposed with a ring that looked suspiciously like a Pinterest board. When the anatomy scan showed our daughter would likely have spina bifida, he ghosted for 3 days. When he reappeared, he said he needed space to recalibrate his vibration and went to Costa Rica for a vision quest. I delivered early. He wasn't there. His wife, ex, maybe, was. She showed up at the NICU with a bag of snacks and said, "He did the same when our son broke his arm. I figured you shouldn't be alone." We cried on opposite sides of the incubator glass. The money got weird. My rent check bounced. He stopped answering calls from the hospital billing office. Then one night I got a DM from a woman I didn't know. She sent me PDFs, spreadsheets, transfers, a screenshot of an internal memo. He had been siphoning funds from his small nonprofit to finance his new life. The woman worked there, in accounting. She asked if I'd be willing to talk to investigators. I wrestled for a week. I didn't want to hurt the father of my child, but he'd already hurt us. I met with them. They showed me the divorce papers he'd never filed. The separation was a story he recycled. The Costa Rica trip went on a company card under professional development. When the indictments came, he called me screaming that I'd betrayed him. I told him betrayal was a NICU bracelet with his last name on it and no signature below father. He was arrested. The nonprofit released a statement. His wife filed for an actual divorce. Donors demanded refunds. My daughter is 3 now and uses a walker covered in glitter stickers. Her favorite toy is a stuffed sloth she calls Judge. On visitation day at the supervised center, he tried to explain karma to me. I told him it's not karma, it's audit trails and baby teeth. He asked why I was smiling. I said, because we're building a life that doesn't depend on anyone's vision quest. As we left, the receptionist handed him certified mail, notice of child support garnishment, and a ban from serving on any nonprofit board. His face fell. I kissed my daughter's soft hair and thought, sometimes the most shocking karma is just the truth with receipts.
Story 4. I was best man for my cousin, Evan. 6 months before his wedding, he left his wife and 2 kids for his soul twin, a Pilates influencer named Cami. He spun it as destiny. When you know, you know. He wanted a beach ceremony, barefoot tuxedos, drone footage. His ex-wife cried at Thanksgiving, and he called her a blockage. Day of the wedding, everything was Instagram perfect. String lights like fairy veins, a donut wall spelling love. Cami live-streamed her makeup while her followers typed angel numbers. I was queasy but supportive. Family is complicated. Evan asked me to manage the slideshow, childhood photos, proposal boomerangs, the whole syrup. Cammie's teenage brother had volunteered to add a few surprises. He handed me a USB and winked. I queued it up without checking. The music swelled, guests sighed at baby pictures, Evan looked smug. Then the screen flickered to a blurry iPhone video of Evan, 3 weeks prior, in a hotel hallway kissing the wedding planner. The angle implied it was from the planner's own phone, saved to the cloud and shared. Gasps rolled across the lawn like wind. The next clip, a screen recording of Evan's DMs offering the planner a plane ticket after the honeymoon and a silent suite. The donut wall suddenly felt like evidence. Cammie's mother stood up so slowly it was like gravity had increased. Cammie didn't scream. She walked to the mic in a whispering wedding dress and said, "Thank you to my little brother for the surprise montage. Also to my attorney for emailing me the finalized prenup 10 minutes ago." She turned to Evan. "You insisted on no prenup. I insisted on one when I learned you were still legally married up to last month. But here's the thing. You cheated before signing, and the clause kicks in." A murmur turned tidal. The officiant closed his book. Evan sputtered about context. Cammie held up her phone, screenshots of timestamps, hotel receipts, and a note. "Your ex-wife sent me the login to the family iCloud because she thought I deserved the truth." The teen brother shrugged. "She's cooler than you." Guests began filing out, taking donuts like war rations. Evan chased Cammie toward the parking lot. She stepped into a waiting car with her lawyer and the wedding planner, who, it turned out, was the planner's wife, eyes blazing behind the wheel. The last drone shot uploaded that night, Evan alone on the sand in a tux with no shoes. The caption from Cammie's account read, "When you know, you go." The karma? The venue enforced the full fee. His ex-wife's lawyer filed for increased support, citing discretionary spending, and Cammie's prenup penalty activated a sizable donation to the ex-wife's college fund in Evan's name. Story 5. I'm the ex-wife your neighborhood thinks is too nice. My husband, Mark, left 4 years ago for his coworker, Lena. He told the kids at a pizza place, thin-crust truths they choked on. He moved into a townhouse with succulents and a chalkboard wall for intentions. He brought our son a drone and our daughter a puppy he returned when it peed on his rug. Lena liked to parade past our house in fluorescent leggings. They'd jog by holding hands. She waved at our porch like she was blessing it. I kept mowing the lawn, taking the kids to dentist appointments, reading the PTA minutes. I refused to be the villain in anyone's story. Time did its thing. Mark missed payments, then birthdays. Lena posted quotes about abundance while Mark's hairline receded. He started complaining about migraines. Then the ER visit became an MRI, became a diagnosis none of us were ready to pronounce. Lena vowed to be his rock. For 3 months, she documented smoothies and Reiki on Instagram. Then her account went private. Then she was gone. I got the call from his sister. He needs help. I went. I helped. I sat in the harsh lights and listened to the oncologist. I arranged rotations, labeled pill boxes, taught our son to hold his father's hand without fear. Mark cried and said I was too good. I said goodness wasn't the point. The kids were. Then came the paperwork. The will he'd meant to update but never did. The marriage certificate to Lena that didn't exist because, surprise, she was still married to a man in another state who finally served her papers after seeing her tagged in Mark's posts. Their wedding had been a backyard commitment ceremony. Legally, I was still next of kin. I handled the hospice. I signed where he couldn't. Mark passed in late spring when the azaleas he never noticed were blooming. At the small funeral, Lena showed up in white. She tried to speak. Our daughter, 14 and quiet as snowfall, stepped to the lectern. She read a letter about fathers and promises and what it means to stay. She didn't mention Lena. She didn't have to. After, we went to the lawyer's office. Lena demanded her share as her partner in spirit. The lawyer folded his hands and explained intestate succession, the absence of legal standing, the debts. Mark had quietly kept the house in my name. He'd never taken me off the deed when he left because refinancing scared him. The only assets left were a modest insurance policy, beneficiary me, set years ago, and a box of watches he'd bought during his love affair with his new life. Our son picked the one with the scratched face. Lena stormed out, shouting about karma. I drove home past the chalkboard townhouse. A for rent sign leaned on the stoop.
On our porch, the azaleas were shedding bright confetti. The kids went inside to reheat lasagna neighbors had dropped off. I sat alone for a minute and finally cried. The shocking karma wasn't that Lena got nothing. It was that the last signature Mark ever made in this world kept a roof over the heads of the people he left, and the last word printed in legal black was my name.
Story 6. I'm the younger sister in a 3-generation bakery where the sourdough starter, Nana, is older than all of us. My brother, Mateo, was the golden child. Front-of-house charm, gelled hair, selfies with tourists holding cannoli. He left his wife and 2 little girls for a food blogger named Azur, who wore hats large enough to shade a small farm. He called it elevating his brand. He also took Nana. Not kid. We came in one morning and the crock was gone, along with the leather recipe ledger our grandma wrote in fountain pen. Azur's followers were eating up Mateo's origin story, and within a month they opened a neon-slick shop across town. Same pastries, same names, even the same ribbon on the boxes. Their launch party had a DJ and a hashtag. Our mom cried into a mixing bowl. Here's the part Mateo didn't know. 5 years earlier, when Dad died, our lawyer rewrote the family trust. A weird clause Mom insisted on. Old country bluntness, modern consequences. Any beneficiary who abandons a spouse and minor children without ongoing support forfeits their share, which will be redirected to that spouse and those minor children. The trust also owned the trademark on our bakery's name, color palette, and Nana. The starter was listed as intellectual property with lab photos and DNA sequencing from a university food science program we'd partnered with. Long story, a professor loved our bread. Mateo's shop did numbers at first. Influencers love shiny. But then Azur posted a behind-the-scenes reel, grinding the ledger into new content, literally ripping out pages to modernize. A former pastry cook sent us the video, and our lawyer smiled that slow lawyer smile. We filed for trademark infringement and conversion of property. We also filed a motion to trigger the trust clause, citing selfies of Mateo and Ibiza while child support lapsed 2 months in a row. In court, Mateo tried charm. Azur came in theatrical black and told the judge that tradition can't be owned. The professor showed up with a lab coat and explained that Nana's microbial signature is as uniquely identifiable as a fingerprint. The judge didn't even look up when signing the injunction. Return the ledger, cease using our name and palette, and, my favorite, return Nana. Azur sobbed for the camera. Mateo brought the crock back like a dog dropping a shoe it chewed. But Nana had died. Wrong flour, wrong temperature, weeks of neglect. Mom held that empty scented jar and looked 1,000 years old. We scraped the dry brown from the edges and tried a revival. Food Science sent us a vial from the archived slant we'd stored, just in case. Nana came back slow, then ferocious, bubbles like a heartbeat. Azura posted a teary apology video that tanked their sponsorships. The trust moved Mateo's forfeited shares straight into a custodial account for his girls, and we rebranded One Bread as the Claus Loaf, a wink to the document that protected us. 2 months later, Mateo came by early, hat in hands, before the ovens were hot. He whispered, "Can I smell her?" Mom held the crock an inch from his face and said, "You could have had all of this. Instead, your daughters will." He nodded, tears shining. Azur? She posted a new love story with a ceramicist. The last time I checked, their shop space had a for lease sign, and our Saturday line curled around the block like a dough rope. Karma smelled like warm crust and ink that never lied.
Story 7. I'm a court interpreter in immigration, the person in the middle when truth has to fit inside grammar. On one Tuesday, a man named Rafi, late 30s, sharp suit, cologne the size of a personality, came in with a woman he'd married in his country the month before. He had left his American wife and kids for true love, he told the officer, blinking at me like it was my job to soften the words. Adjustment of status interviews are routine until they aren't. The officer asked date of birth, favorite foods, where they keep their toothpaste. Rafi smiled too much. His new wife, call her Nailu, clutched a purse like a flotation device.
When asked where Rafi sleeps, she said left side, then corrected to right after he coughed. I've seen enough to know when a script is fraying. Then the officer invited anyone who might assist to join. In walked Rafi's first wife, Layla, with their teen daughter, Miriam. They were invited not as accusers, but as witnesses to timelines. Rafi went sheet white. Layla's eyes were knives and rain. The officer kept it clinical. Mr. A, you stated you separated from your first wife in March. Do you recognize this lease agreement from May listing you at the same address? He slid a paper across. I interpreted. Rafi stammered about temporary visits. The officer pulled bank records showing shared groceries, a school email calling him parent/guardian in April, overlapping with selfies from Nailu's engagement party. I interpreted neutral verbs from messy life. Then Miriam spoke, asking politely to address the officer in our shared language. She'd brought a stack of photos and a tiny date-stamped notebook her therapist told her to keep. This is the day he promised to come to my track meet and didn't, she said, flipping to April. This is the day he told me he was at a conference, but took her to the cherry blossoms. She held up a picture from Nailu's public Instagram. This is the day he said he would help me with algebra, but booked a flight. Rafi whispered, stop. Miriam didn't. If she loves you, she said to Nailu, I hope she knows how much of you he'll spend. I interpreted that sentence and felt it lodge somewhere in the room. The officer didn't thunder. He cited statute. Given material misrepresentation and possible bigamy in the country of origin, paperwork rustled, stamps thunked. The application is denied. A notice to appear will be issued. Rafi pleaded about cultural misunderstandings. The officer stood. On the way out, Nailu brushed by Layla and murmured, too soft for the recorder, but not for me. I didn't know. Layla answered in the same language. I believe you. Leave now while it still only hurts. I didn't interpret that. It wasn't evidence, just mercy. 2 months later, I saw Layla and Miriam at a different window, applying for passports. They looked lighter. I later heard Rafi had retained a removal defense attorney and claimed persecution by former spouse. The officer from that day now requests me by name. He says I'm unflappable. Truth is, I'm just the bridge. The karma is that bridges remember every footstep, and sometimes they get to watch the person who stomped the hardest walk back the way they came, alone.
Story 8. I work in product at a startup that was everyone's dream until it wasn't. Our COO, Ben, left his wife and middle schooler for our CEO, Sarah, during Series B. He called it converging vectors. Slack exploded with no politics in #prod, which is code for don't look. Ben followed Sarah into a stealth spin-off 6 months later. He cashed out a chunk, forfeited the rest, and whispered rocket ship to anyone who'd listen. His ex, Nora, a public school art teacher, got a modest settlement and half of whatever vested before the split. She took a part-time at Michael's to cover summer camp. Ben and Sarah's new company, Luminary, announced a platform to put creators first. We all rolled our eyes at the irony. Here's the devil's in the details part. On his way out, Ben signed an IP assignment that, thanks to a very tired but very thorough counsel, covered all inventions conceived during the term of employment, whether or not reduced to practice. He'd scribbled a small AI feature idea in a Moleskine 8 months prior, a thing we shelved, then revived. It became the core of a pivot. He forgot the paper existed. Legal did not. Luminary launched with a splashy campaign using scans of public domain school art as training data. On day 3, the internet noticed that one of the hero images, a papier-mâché skyline with a crooked moon, was recognizably from Miss Nora's class. A parent had posted it years ago to a tiny blog. Nora recognized the glue drip. She wrote a polite email asking for credit or removal. Sarah replied with a lawyer's letterhead. Meanwhile, our pivot landed. We shipped Ben's old scribble, baked into a killer feature. A week later, the big company knocked with an acquisition offer, citing our patent filing, the one that listed Ben as inventor and our company as assignee. Ben went feral. He claimed we'd stolen his idea. Counsel slid the assignment across the table with that bored shrug only lawyers and cats can pull off. Nora filed a DMCA notice through the district's council. Other teachers followed. Luminary's demo crashed mid-conference when a takedown cascade removed half their assets. Investors suddenly loved diligence. Sarah needed a scapegoat with a recognizable face and a contract weak enough to shred. Ben checked both boxes. He called me at 11 p.m., voice shredded. "Did you know they can claw my shares?" "Yes, Ben. That's what for cause means." "Can you, talk to Nora?" "Why would she listen to me?" He didn't answer. Our sale closed. Nora's tiny slice of my company turned into a not-so-tiny check, the kind that erases decades of cafeteria duty. She started a fund for classroom supplies in low-income schools and named it after her grandmother. Our CEO asked if she wanted the B.E. Memorial on the plaque since Ben's idea was in the patent. She smiled and said, "Just the kids' names, please." Luminary laid off half their staff. Sarah wrote a Medium post about learning through failure. Ben posted a photo from a co-working space captioned, "Back to builder mode." In the comments, someone asked about his kid's science fair. He didn't reply. Karma wasn't the money, though that was sweet. Karma was watching a woman he called boring build something bigger than all of us, while his rocket ship turned out to be a firework that looked impressive for 8 seconds, then left smoke you couldn't scrub from your clothes.
Story 9. I call foreclosures for the county courthouse. If you want to see the fall of Rome in sweat-stained shirts, come to an auction day in August. People show up with cashier's checks and hope. On this Wednesday, lot number 19 was a tidy blue bungalow where I'd watched the family draw hopscotch squares for years. The owner, Dale, had left his wife and son the previous spring for a poet, his words. He moved across town and posted sunrise selfies. The mortgage didn't care about sunrise. The bank's attorney nodded at me. Minimum bid set. Dale arrived with his new love, a woman with a nose ring and the skittery look of someone who thought real estate was like Etsy. They whispered and pointed at the house like it had wronged them. His ex, Megan, stood under a hackberry tree with her teenage boy, hoodie up despite the heat. I read the terms. A man at the back raised his hand first. I'd seen him before, contractor type. Boots like punctuation. The poet hissed into Dale's ear. Dale got loud. "This is fraud. She's been living there, free." The attorney didn't blink. "Sir, your name is on the note." Bidding ticked up. Contractor versus a woman in scrubs versus a guy with sunglasses on his head. Then a new bidder slid forward. A representative from a nonprofit I didn't recognize, Home Again Community Trust. She was calm, checkbook ready. She bid in steady increments, never flinching. The poet wilted. Dale barked at her that she didn't understand equity. My job is numbers, not lectures, so I called, going once, twice, sold. To the trust. Dale demanded to know which evil hedge fund had stolen his house. The representative handed me a card to staple to the file, and that's when I saw the donor list printed small on the back. Unusual, but some nonprofits do that for transparency. Half the names were neighbors from that street. The last name stopped me. Anonymous, in honor of J.T. I looked up. Megan's son, hoodie kid, initials J.T. He noticed me noticing and scuffed his toe into the courthouse steps. The rep walked over to Megan and handed her an envelope. Megan read, gasped, then covered her mouth. The trust was a community land fund started quietly by 3 retired teachers and a pastor. They'd pooled donations to buy homes being swallowed by speculators, then leased them back to families at below market rates. The seed money? A GoFundMe Megan's son had started with skate videos, and a caption, "Help keep my mom's house."
He hadn't told her because he didn't want to promise something he couldn't deliver. Dale threw up his hands. So my own brat is buying my house out from under me. Megan's lawyer, I hadn't seen him slide in, handed Dale a folded paper, a temporary protective order stemming from a text tirade he had sent the week before. The deputy by the door shifted his weight a quarter-inch closer. The poet tried to grab the envelope from Megan. The deputy cleared his throat. People started clapping, soft at first, then louder, like rain on a tin roof. Dale's face folded into a shape I wouldn't wish on anyone, but he turned it into a snarl and spat something about leeches. The rep raised her chin. "Sir, you're welcome to apply to our financial literacy workshop," she said, all honey and steel. As they left, JT touched the porch rail of the courthouse the way you touch a starting line. He turned to his mom and said, "I can fix the loose step now." She nodded, with tears making constellations on her cheeks. Karma wasn't Dale losing a house. It was watching a neighborhood knit itself tighter where he tried to pull a thread, and realizing the community had decided whose name belonged on that blue door.
Story 10. I run a small city animal rescue. We get more drama than any soap. One afternoon, a man in a designer tracksuit came in with a carrier and a story about allergies. Inside, a 14-year-old tuxedo cat with one chipped fang and eyes like old coins. The intake form said, Whiskerson. The man hesitated at the microchip question, then wrote unknown in a hand that had never written a grocery list. Our scanner chirped. Chip pinged registered to the Nolan family with a phone number and an address I recognized from the nicer part of town. We call, a woman answers, silence, then a sob like a dam cracking. "You found Daisy?" she asked. "My ex took her when he moved out. Said he deserved someone who greets him at the door. He blocked me when I asked for updates." She arrived in 20 minutes with 2 kids in school uniforms, still wrinkled from recess. The little one pressed his face to the carrier and breathed, "Hi, old lady." Daisy pressed back, paws spread like a starfish. The older child kept wiping his face with the back of his hand, the way people do when they don't want to cry in public. They brought photos of Daisy sleeping on math homework, Daisy in a Christmas scarf, Daisy on a camping chair at a soccer practice. Then, because the universe loves timing, a woman in neon athleisure stormed in, live stream already rolling. "We need the cat back," she announced to her followers. "We're doing a brand partnership on blended family pets next week." Behind her came the tracksuit man, suddenly sheepish. I recognized him, local gym owner who'd left his wife for this influencer last year, the pair true love posting from Bali while his kids did virtual school in the kitchen. I explained the basics. Microchip is legal proof. He'd surrendered Daisy. There's a process. He puffed up. "I'll buy your entire shelter." His girlfriend beamed at the phone. Comments ballooned. One of my volunteers, 19 and fierce, whispered, "Do we say something?" I shook my head. Process beats tantrum. Then, the influencer made a mistake. She lifted her phone toward the kids and chirped, "Tell everyone how excited you are to see the kitty." The older kid flinched. The little one piped, "She's our cat. She was mom's before Dad even met you." The comment section turned like a school of fish. The live chat exploded with words I can't print. Someone recognized the dad. Someone tagged a brand he worked with. Someone else posted screenshots of his family first mission statement from the gym's website. We escorted the kids to a quiet room to finish the reclaim form. The mom hugged Daisy and covered her face in fur like prayer. Meanwhile, the gym's Google reviews started dropping like hailstones. A local reporter DM'd our rescue page asking for a statement. We didn't give one. We don't feed fires. Tracksuit tried a final play. "I'll sue you." I slid the surrender form across the counter with his signature. He read it, deflated, and looked at the influencer whose live ring light had become a spotlight. She muttered, "This isn't good for the brand," and floated out to film on the sidewalk. He followed, calling after her, "Babe! Babe!" We walked the family to their car. Daisy's purr rattled like a motorcycle. The older kid turned back and whispered, "Thank you for not making a show." I said that old cats don't like loud rooms and we try to respect that.
A week later, someone left a fat envelope taped to our door with a note. From Daisy's human brother, for the ones no one comes for. Inside was a cashier's check the size of a miracle. The gym owner posted a Notes app apology that read like it had been focus grouped underwater. The influencer pivoted to self-care through accountability. The only post that mattered to me was a grainy video the mom sent, Daisy asleep again on math homework. The page caption said, "Back where she learned to read." And I realized the sweetest Parma isn't a downfall. It's an old cat choosing the lap she always chose, while the people who left discover that some followings don't follow you home.
Story 11. I'm the harbor master for a small New England town, the kind where the yachts and the clam shacks share a parking lot. We host a charity regatta every August, and 2 summers ago, Captain Leon made his big return. He'd left his wife and 12-year-old son for his crew chief, young, tan, always barefoot, and renamed his family sloop from Little Lantern to Soulmate. He posted drone reels of sunset tacks and captions about finally living authentically. His ex, Hannah, kept teaching swim lessons at the Y and brought their kid down to fish off the pier with a Walmart rod. Race day was glassy at first, then a squall popped out of nowhere. Squall lines do what they want. A dozen boats reefed and ran for harbor. Soulmate tried to be brave, kept her spinnaker up too long, and broached. Over the VHF came a panicked mayday. "This is Little Lantern. Man overboard." I frowned. AIS still had the old registry name. Leon had never bothered to file the rename paperwork with the Coast Guard. He'd only slapped vinyl letters on the stern. We launched the town RIB alongside a Coast Guard cutter. Through sheets of rain, I saw the sloop on her ear, boyfriend clinging to the rail, the new love gone from the cockpit. Then a flash of orange, the kid from the pier, Jonah, in his mother's rusty skiff, cutting straight into the whitecaps like he'd been born in them. Hannah was on the tiller, jaw set, life jacket zipped. She slid past the stern, and Jonah threw a throwbag like he was in a drill. The new girlfriend popped up from under the boom, choking. Jonah hauled her in with both arms, grunting. "I took Dad's knot class," he yelled over the wind, cheeks wet with rain. We got everyone aboard the cutter. Leon was coughing salt and pride. He tried to make it about him. "Jonah, buddy, you saved my fiancée." And then he asked me, "Can I tow Soulmate back under our race number?" I told him salvage law doesn't care about hashtags. The Coast Guard logged the assistance under the vessel's registered name, Little Lantern. Owner on file, Hannah J. Weller, because the title transfer he swore he'd file never happened. Insurance, too, still in Hannah's name and current because she'd kept paying out of caution. When the regatta committee met, the bylaws were clear. The salvage award, a percentage of the boat's insured value, goes to the primary rescuers. The Coasties don't take awards. That left our municipal unit and civilian assistance. We split our share per policy, and I wrote the other check to Jay Weller because it was the kid who put the rope on her, and he was registered as crew on the safety roster for the swim program. Leon sputtered that it was his money for his boat. I slid the registry across the table. He'd renamed the vinyl, but not the truth. Back at the dock, Hannah thanked me by setting a Ziploc of still warm muffins on my desk. Jonah sat on the bulkhead, turning the salvage check over in his hands like he was afraid it would smudge. He said, "Can I use it to buy Mom a new outboard and the rest for a college fund?" I said there's no better use for storm money. Leon posted a slick apology video about never being too proud to learn. Comments roasted him for calling his boat the wrong name in the Mayday. The kicker is, the regatta trophy had already been engraved months prior. With sponsor funds, that year the winner's plaque read, Community Spirit Award, Little Lantern and Crew. The photo under it is Jonah, damp hair pasted to his forehead, one arm around his mom, the other hand still pink from rope burn. Leon isn't in the frame. The sea doesn't care who you think you are. It knows who filed the paperwork and who showed up when the water got loud.
Story 12. I'm a doorman on the Upper West Side. My mother calls me a professional watcher. I watch people's dogs, dry cleaning, secrets. Mr. Kent in 8B left his wife for a Pilates instructor in 8A. Same floor, one door over. He called it cosmic efficiency. His ex, Leela, stayed in 8B with their daughter and a ficus tree that had survived 5 Christmases and 1 radiator disaster. The board pretended to be neutral because money has a way of dimming outrage. Kent tried to push Leela out with noise complaints, odors, letters about her inability to maintain harmonious occupancy. I saw his girlfriend hauling ring lights and boxes, then quiet strangers with rollerboards arriving at midnight. Our cameras caught keys being handed off with winks. The super found extra locks on 8A's door and a hidden key box screwed into the stairwell. The building smelled faintly of new perfume and panic. At the next board meeting, I brought the package log, like I always do when asked. The treasurer slid a thicker packet across to the president. Screenshots from Airbnb. Artist's loft with sunlight, as seen on TikTok. Photos showed 8A's living room, Mr. Kent's Rolex on the credenza, like a cherry on a sundae. The bylaws are itchy about illegal sublets. Fines stack like poker chips. The board sent notices. Kent wrote back that modern hospitality is a victimless innovation. The board retained a lawyer, whose neckties cost more than my month's rent, and smiled a smile that meant billable hours. Meanwhile, a leak started in 8A. Water dripped into 7A, then 7B. The super begged to enter. A guest with a suitcase and a selfie stick said she didn't have the host's number. We called the city. The inspector arrived, took one step in and wrote more tickets than I've ever seen anyone write without refilling a pen. The board demanded assessments. Kent refused. Liens happen fast when marble foyers meet municipal fines. In the kind of meeting where coffee tastes like courtroom, the board voted to foreclose on 8A's shares. Kent's cosmic efficiency had turned into cosmic math. At the auction, hardly anyone bid. Illegal sublet stink lingers. Leela's lawyer, she had one now, X's level up quietly, handed the board a letter invoking the right of first refusal clause the sponsor had buried decades ago. The co-op could choose to buy at the winning price and assign to a member in good standing. The president assigned the purchase to Leela for the auction price minus the back fines Kent owed. Kent arrived too late, new Pilates mat under his arm like a flag. He tried to tip me to stall the elevator. I don't take bribes. I hold doors. When the papers were signed, Leela walked out with 2 sets of keys, 8B and 8A. She didn't gloat. She asked me to help carry the ficus across the hall. The kid stuck a drawing on 8A's fridge. 2 apartments joined by a rainbow. As Kent moved out, he handed me a stack of cash and said, "For your trouble." I folded it back into his palm and returned a small, slightly crumpled envelope I'd kept in my desk for months. Found in the lobby the week he left. A birthday card addressed to Daddy in a 3rd grader's handwriting, glitter still falling from the edges. He stared at it like it was a foreign script. "Where?" he started. I nodded toward the rainbow on the new fridge. Upstairs, the Pilates instructor filmed a tearful, moving on story in 8A's empty echo. Downstairs, Leela asked me if the ficus would like more light closer to the window. "Plants like roots," I said. She smiled. In a building where doors are inches apart, karma had to travel only a few steps, and then it changed the locks. Story 13. I'm 16, and my life got weird when my dad fell in love with a chess streamer. He left mom for Queen Z, a 20-something with eyeliner sharp enough to cut rope and a subscriber count that felt like a country. He told me they'd be a power couple and I could visit their content house as long as I didn't film the kitchen before noon because light. Mom picked up extra shifts at the pharmacy and bought me a travel chess clock from a thrift store. Dad started playing Blitz on streams, trash-talking like he'd invented knights. He loved it when chat called him Chess Dad. Meanwhile, he forgot my regional qualifiers, then DM'd me a fire emoji when I sent my standings. Queen Z posted me once. Future GM, maybe. I was content. There's a big open tournament in our city every spring. Prize money, GMs, vendors selling books that smell like basements and ambition. I scrape the entry fee from babysitting and tips I get teaching little kids scholars mate. Round 3, my pairings put me across from, of course, Queen Z. Cameras, ring lights, chat whispering like a hive. I asked the arbiter to enforce the no live assistance rule. She smiled and tapped a sign. We shook hands. Her nails were chessboard patterned. I won the toss and opened with a quiet, boring London. She smirked, performed for the lens, and overextended. On move 22, I sprung a trap I learned from a YouTube channel with 50 subscribers and a cat. I watched her realize the bishop she'd been dancing with was actually a guillotine. She did the one thing you can't do at a board. She knocked her king over accidentally, then tried to reset pieces without calling the arbiter. The cameras caught it. Chat went feral. The arbiter came, calm as a frozen lake, added 2 minutes to my clock, gave her a warning. We played on. On move 31, she made an illegal move, returned a captured pawn to the board. Chat's delay had hidden that I'd taken it. Second offense in one game is a forfeit. The arbiter's hand hovered over the clock, then descended like a verdict. Game to me. Queen Z blew up at the table, then online. She said the arbiter was biased, the venue was hostile, that I'd weaponized the rulebook. Her sponsor, a kid-friendly puzzle brand, pulled their logo off her overlay within 24 hours. Their PR statement mentioned sportsmanship. She posted a crying apology that was really a brand pivot. Dad called me from the parking lot, red-faced. "You humiliated her," he said. I looked at the game score sheet in my hand. My handwriting steady for once. "Dad," I said, "you told me to be brave over the board." He stared at me like I was a stranger who said his name with the wrong accent. 2 days later, Queen Z went live and said she needed distance from drama. She unfollowed him. He posted a photo of a takeout container and the caption, "Back to basics." I took second in my section. 6 rounds, 5 points. The sponsor who dropped Queen Z walked past our table and handed me a card. "We fund scholastic clubs," the rep said. Eyes kind. "Call us." After the closing ceremony, Mom hugged me so hard my metal clinked. Dad hovered by the door like a ghost who couldn't cross a threshold. Karma wasn't my rating bump or her lost sponsor. It was that chess, this game he used to teach me with hot chocolate and patience, had rules that didn't bend for clout. And the board didn't care about our last names, only about who remembered to touch move, who played the endgame, who kept their hand still when everything in you wanted to knock the world over.